This month I got married, and of course, like any other wedding, I had a photographer there, but unlike any other wedding that I've been to, at least, I asked my photographer if he could shoot on a Soviet lens. Well, he said yes, so let's see how they turned out. That's right, guys. A few months ago, when I met my photographer for my wedding, I had a chat to him and said, look, I would love it if you could shoot at least part of my wedding on a Soviet lens. And thankfully, he shoots a lot on manual focus lenses anyway, and kind of old vintage lenses, mainly on the Nikon side. But he said yes. So after that, the next question, of course, was what lens should we shoot part of the wedding on? And for me, it was pretty easy. I wanted it to be on one of my two 50mm, one of my two favorite 50mm made in the Soviet Union, either the Era 6M or the Zenitar ME1. And we ended up choosing, of course, the Zenitar ME1. It is a rare 50mm f1.7. Only about 3,000 or so of these lenses were ever made. And it just has this beautiful character to it. A diamond aperture if you do stop it down. But look, even if you don't stop it down, it is one of the sharpest Soviet lenses that I own. It has such great 3D pop, beautiful bokeh as well. So look, this lens was the way to go. And yeah, basically, I gave this to my photographer the day before the wedding. He had a little play around with it before on his Nikon Z9, and yeah, ended up being happy to shoot with it. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to some of the photos that he captured and take a look at how they turned out. Alrighty guys, so here we are in ON1, taking a look at some of the photos from the wedding, and I'm starting off with this one. These first ones are all shot on the Zenitar ME1, and I think if you zoom in here, you can see beautiful sharpness, but just take a look at this photo overall. This has beautiful 3D pop. It's got a little bit of the vignette because it was shot wide open. I think all of these photos actually shot wide open at f1.7, and I just love the colors coming out of this. Again, our photographer's done a great job editing it, but what a great way to start these photo samples. And then here again, I really like the bokeh down at the back here of the kind of foliage. I love the sharpness. Everything looks really good. Again, just a great example of what the Zenitar ME1 can do. A little bit more bokeh here as well. This is a nice shot. If we move towards the street, some of these street shots are really nice as well. You can just see the bokeh. Wide open at f1.7, you do get a little bit of this soap bubbling with the Zenitar ME1, which honestly, I love. And even though it's soap bubbling, you don't actually get super harsh lines around the edges of the bokeh. It's still really smooth and clear. And here we've got an example of the flare of the Zenitar ME1. Now, I have cleaned this lens, but as you can see, even though there's a few little specks here and there, but I just think this adds so much character, and you can't do this with a modern lens. The photographer, he added a few post-effect lens flares in, only one or two photos to be fair, but I think being able to do this in camera just shows that, you can get a few free post-effects. Now, I love this photo. I think it looks amazing. The bokeh in the background, it almost feels as though you're getting transported into a different world when you look at this. The background's just completely obliterated, but almost feels as though you're in some sort of a warp speed animation, looking at the kind of cat's eye effect, the bokeh kind of getting a little bit more curved towards the edges of the frame. I love this photo. And again, another lovely photo. This one's a good one to zoom in on, just so you can see every single strand of hair is captured on the Nikon Z9 sensor and the Zenitar ME1, and there's barely any color fringing there. Look, you can barely see the tiniest bit. If you zoom like super far in, you can almost see a little bit of color fringing there, but overall it is just such a clean, beautiful image. There we go. So I've got a few of these to compare now as well. These photos on the right are all going to be photos taken with the modern Nikkor lenses. And I think if we zoom in here, you can see that realistically, there's actually not much of a difference in sharpness whatsoever between the two photos. You know, they're both super sharp. There is no marked difference. You're not going to look at the one on the left and go, yeah, that was definitely shot on a softer lens. If we go ahead and move again to this next one, there we go. Let's throw in another comparison of it, maybe to this one here, perhaps. So on the right again, we've got the modern lens, and on the left, the Zenita ME1. And now the modern lens, the Nikon Z85mm1.2 was shot at 1.2. So you are going to have kind of more depth of field, but I think that's just a, you know, characteristic of f1.2 as opposed to the lens itself. Now, of course, the Nikon lens, super creamy bokeh. That is definitely a plus if you're after that. But again, I think the Zenita ME1 here really holds its own. And finally, another little comparison shot. Walking down the street here, let's go ahead and compare it there. So on the right, again, we've got the Nikon lens. And you actually see here, even the Nikon lens, it also shows a little bit of this kind of visible bokeh in this hard to render tree in the left here. And look, it looks good, don't get me wrong, but I think when you're comparing both of these two lenses, particularly with how they've both been edited, like, there is nothing wrong with the Zenita ME1 on the left. I love these photos. So of course I had to put my Nikon Z6, which I'm shooting on today, to use as well, and I did that through the use of this bad boy, the MC Mir 20N. I set it up, I just kind of left it on a ledge doing a time lapse. So I set up my time lapse to shoot in medium JPEG because I don't like two big time lapses. I don't really like to have to edit time lapses. Exposure smoothing on, ISO smoothing on, and a 5-second interval. And of course the Nikon Z6, it ran out of battery before, you know, it could capture the entire reception. But overall, I think the time lapse turned out pretty great. So let's take a look at it. So guys, as you can see, even when it's 2023 and companies like Nikon are putting out some of the best optics ever produced, in fact, the best optics ever produced, optics that are near perfection, you know, really on the limits of what glass can do physically, and you can still get photos that look just as good on old Soviet and vintage lenses, just like the Zenita ME1. So if that doesn't convince you to go out there, you know, hop onto eBay and go buy some more Soviet or vintage lenses, then I don't know what does, because when I saw those photos come out, I was so happy with them. And even when you're pixel peeping, you know, they really do stand up to that modern Nikkor glass, which I think is a feat in and of itself. So look guys, let me know, have you ever shot a wedding or, you know, any other event on your Soviet lenses? I know a lot of filmmakers like to use the Soviet sets, particularly the iron glass rehoused sets. They look pretty cool. But what about photography? I don't hear too many photographers using Soviet lenses these days. If you're one of those photographers? Let me know down below. But in the meantime, remember to subscribe here to Soviet Lens Reviews on YouTube. And till the next time, I'll see you then.